This is how I solder a ring with a pattern on it. This is a little, I call it a diamond type pattern. It has actually little flowers and little diamond shapes. And what I have found is that if I try to use my regular method to solder these types of rings, what ends up happening is that I get a blob of solder on the outside of the ring that fills in some of the grooves of the pattern, and I don't want that. I want the edges to come together as cleanly as possible and to leave the pattern intact. So what I figured out, and this is my method that I figured out. This is my super secret method that I am giving you today for free. And this is how I make my pattern rings without a big mess of solder on the outside that totally destroys the pattern. So here's what I do. I use paste solder. And normally I put the paste solder on, as I've shown you before, on the inside of the ring. But when I do a pattern ring, I put the solder on the outside of the ring, and I just use as little as I can get away with. Just a little bit of solder. I push it down with the tip of the syringe into the joint. And then I put it on my soldering board with the joint right over the gap between my two pieces of siding. And instead of using my acetylene and air torch that I normally, goodness, that's really close. Instead of using my regular torch, I'm gonna use my good old propane plumber's torch. Let me zoom out and show you. Okay, this is my Worthington propane plumber's torch, old-fashioned. Okay, but it works good on these because it forces the heat through the joint faster instead of just heating right at the one side of the joint. I believe what it does is it forces the heat through the joint because it's more forceful flame, even though it's not as hot. So, alright. Get my torch lit, and then I'm going to come in with that, and I'm going to point it right at that joint that I want the solder to come through and really kind of blast it right up and down that seam, and before you know it, that solder is going to jump through, and I end up, when you can't really tell because it's dirty here, but I end up with a nice seam that doesn't show blobs of solder. So there you go. That's how you solder a pattern ring, and make sure that you don't get solder all over the outside of it. It gives you a nice clean joint. If you have any questions about any of the techniques that I used, or you need to know where I get some of my supplies, or if you have any kinds of questions, tips, comments, anything like that, be sure to leave a comment below or send me a message. If you like the video, click like and share it with your friends, and be sure to subscribe for more how-to videos.